This video is sponsored by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca. If this is our first time meeting, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. On this channel, we talk about houseplants, we talk about living with plants, we talk about gardening, all of these wonderful things. But today we're going to be talking about 5 things that you can do that is not buying a new plant. So I think that buying plants, acquiring new plants is obviously a really exciting thing, but sometimes we can get really carried away, especially if we're super new to collecting. And I like to share content that is about getting new plants, but also about appreciating what we already have and, I don't know, cultivating a jungle in our homes without constantly acquiring new plants and new everything else. So today we're going to be talking about some alternatives to buying new plants, and let's get started. The first thing that you can do if you get the urge to buy a new plant is to just propagate in your collection. So obviously, well, not obviously, maybe if you're super new, maybe you don't know this, but you can actually create new plants from existing plants. And there's lots of different ways to propagate based on how the plant is growing. Not all propagation methods will work for all plants. There's definitely a lot of videos out there on propagation. I'll have some from myself linked down below if you're interested in learning more about propagating from your own collection. But doing this is a really great way to, number one, maybe downsize a plant that you already have that might be getting too big, or just to experiment, learn how plants grow. The way that I learned the most about plants was through propagating. So much of my early collecting, the first couple years of collecting, was lots of propagating. So I would really suggest that if you're wanting to buy new plants, you're wanting the urge, you're wanting to satiate the thirst for new plants. The next thing that you can do besides buying new plants is to reorganize your collection. So I think that we as humans, in recent events with technology growing and everything else, our attention span is that of a fly. It's not great. That's why apps like TikTok are really popular, because it's like constant new content every like 15 to 60 seconds, now 3 minutes sometimes. But basically that just goes to show that our attention span is like boom, like all over the place. And I think that when you're looking at your collection as you have it set up for, you know, long periods of time, nothing changes for long periods of time, you're going to want to spice things up by buying a new plant. And you know, I definitely feel that. This video is as much for me as it is for you, but it's something that I have recently started doing when I do get the urge to buy new plants is to just rearrange things, move things around, you know, switch up the order, switch up my shelf, what's on the shelf, you know, switch up what plants are in what room. I think that's also a really good way to do it, because if I'm in this room, I do most of my work in this room. I film in this room, I do a lot of my editing in this room, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing the same plants over and over again. It makes sense that people want to buy new plants, right? So I think a really great way to avoid that need is to rearrange your collection on a consistent basis. Maybe not all the time with super sensitive plants, because certain plants don't like to be moved, such as like a ficus or something like that. But you know, most of my plants really don't care as long as they're getting very similar conditions. So if you have multiple east windows, maybe swap some of the plants in your east windows or your west windows or whatever it may be. Make sure that you're not changing their conditions too much, because that could, you know, bring some shock to the plant. But just switching up even the order that they are on the shelf. You know, instead of having these 3 plants right here, I could distribute these 3 plants among the rest of the shelf, and then it looks like a new plant display, and I'm looking at something that's different, and my heart and my mind and my need to buy is a little bit satiated. I'd like to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an online website building tool where you can create a website and run your business. I am using Squarespace personally to create the Potted Together website. That is my podcast. If you're not familiar, I do have a podcast with my friends Adam and Nicole. If your business is very new or you've never built a website before, I highly suggest Squarespace. Number one, because it's extremely easy to grab a template and start working on your website. But also, I ran into an issue the other day where I was having a hard time figuring out how to fix it. And I got on a web chat with a Squarespace support person, and I had an answer literally within minutes, and it just helped my time doing the website go so much smoother. You just pick a template and then you edit the template. You can also edit the individual blocks that you have in the template, like picking a different style. Squarespace has lots of features that you can add to your website, like membership programs, email campaigns, blog, and an online store. If you are interested in checking out Squarespace, you can head to the link down in the description box below, squarespace.com/BeccaDeLaPlants, and use the code BeccaDeLaPlants for 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain. Let's get back into the video. The next thing that you can do, which might be a little bit more shocking to the system, at least for me, is to actually count how many plants you have. Now, this has stopped me from buying more plants on multiple occasions. I count my collection and then I think of a number in my head that feels like a reasonable amount of plants to own for myself. For me, that's usually around like 100 to 120. I actually haven't counted my collection in a really long time, just because, I don't know, sometimes counting your collection and how many plants you have can also be like a flex culture thing. Like some people take it to the point where they're like, oh, I have 150 plants. How many plants do you have? And I'm not saying to do it in that sort of way. Like, I don't want people to frame their hearts that way, where it's like, oh, I have more plants than you, I'm a better collector than you. That's not what I'm suggesting here. What I'm suggesting is just to count your collection so you actually know how many plants you have. Because if you're verging on 200, 300, 400 plants, which some people are without even noticing it, you might realize in your mind and in your heart, oh my gosh, that's way too much. So whatever that number is for you, it'll be different for everybody. Whether or not you want to share that number with the public, that's totally up to you. I just think that sometimes it can get sticky when people get like, I don't know, I have more plants than you vibes. I think it's kind of weird. So moving on from that, the next tip that I have for you if you're wanting to avoid buying new plants is to just actually spend time with your plants. Now, I've talked about in the past about how I personally personify my plants. I don't name them or anything, but all of my plants are women besides a few, and it's just a big girls' party all the time when I'm hanging out with my plants, and I love it. So I don't know, I think that it's really important to spend time with your plants, to spend time, caring for them beyond the average, taking it to the sink and watering it or walking around with your watering can. Sometimes plants do need more care than that, like washing their leaves or fertilizing or, staking them up on a pole or a board of wood, whatever you're doing. But just in general, caring for your plants, doing plant chores, I think is a really important part of collecting plants. Making sure that everybody is healthy and happy, checking for pests regularly. And I think when you are in a habit of doing those things, you might be less inclined to buy more plants because you might realize, wow, this is actually a lot of work and I don't need to add more onto this pile. Because for me personally, and I don't know if anybody out there would agree with me, but I'm sure there is somebody out there, I would rather have less plants and have my collection be really healthy and happy and beautiful than have a lot of plants and have them have a lot of issues and pests and outgrowing their pots, and I don't have the capacity or time to take care of all of them. I feel like it's a pretty universal thing. Like, it just makes sense that people would prefer to have happy, healthy plants. But I think the issue is a lot of people, including myself, get caught up in collecting every single plant all at the same time, which is another thing that I've learned, is that I don't need to have every single plant right now. That's a little bonus tip that I talked about in a previous video. I think it was what I wish I knew when I started collecting houseplants. And that is, once you have the plant, you have the plant. The thrill of the chase is done. And it's obviously really exciting that you have the plant. We're very happy to have the plant. But a lot of the fun of collecting anything is the thrill of the chase, So I think that if I was to do it all over again, I would have been a bit slower to acquire those harder to find expensive plants. Maybe purchase them one at a time and really take the time to understand them and their needs so that I'll have them for a very long time and they'll be happy in my care. So I think it's important to understand your personal capacity as a person, as a plant person, because most likely your entire job in life is not surrounded by caring for your houseplants. You probably have a job, a family, pets, things that need a bit more of your attention than a houseplant. I know, at least for myself, my job literally is to collect houseplants and share about it online. But even I cannot spend every single second of my day doing all of this because there's so much more to life than tending to my houseplants. So I think that's a really important balance to strike, is knowing how fun it is to collect houseplants and not letting it take over your mind, body, soul. I know that that sounds like kind of, I don't know, it sounds a little bit extreme, but I notice a lot of the time, and I've been wanting to talk about this in a video, but I feel like it doesn't need an entire video. But this whole concept of, you know, plant addiction, or like I'm addicted to plants, you know, people saying things like that. And I never judge people who say that, obviously, but I think that there's a lot of implications in that phrase that we don't exactly understand. It sort of glamorizes addiction, which is a really sad thing that affects so many different people, and it's not a happy thing. So I just find it, for myself, I find it strange that I would ever, like, I don't know how to like word this, but to find it strange that I'd ever be like happy that I'm addicted to something. Like something has taken control over me and I can't take that control back. I am a person who likes control, but the point is, like, I think that that's really, I don't know, damaging word choice to say that, I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself, and I've been trying to figure out like how to put this in a video, but like I said, I just don't know where or how to put it, and I don't exactly know how I feel, because I know that people's intentions in saying it are not negative. But if you or a family member or someone close to you has ever, you know, struggled with addiction, it's a really serious thing. I just think it's important to understand your capacity. Taking care of your plants as best you can will encourage you not to buy more, because you understand how much it actually takes to keep them happy. And the last part of this video, what you can do to not buy more plants, is to organize a trade with your friends. So the first point in this video was to propagate your plants, to make new plants in your collection. And you know, if you're kind of tired of those plants and you want to try something new, but you don't want to buy something, trading is a really, really great thing to do, because it, you know, number one, it brings you closer to people in the plant community, which for me is the number one reason why I love collecting houseplants. They're very beautiful and they're very fun, but I think the main thing for me is just the discovery of new people and the discovery of friendship. I've made a lot of really amazing friends through houseplants. The plant community is the best part of plants, and it's not always a healthy space. I think there's definitely sectors of the plant community that is not good, but knowing in my heart that the part of the plant community that I'm in is good, and I gravitate towards good-hearted people, is what matters to me. So if you are wanting to make new friends, I would really suggest maybe joining a trade group. There might be some sort of like secret Santa type of thing. I've joined actually a few secret Santa plant exchanges, and I call it Secret Santa because that's the one that I joined, but I did notice that they did it like throughout the year, so it wasn't just around the holidays. So if you are interested in doing any sort of trades, I've talked about on my YouTube channel a few times how to organize trades with people online or in person, and also I made a video about plant swaps. So if you're interested in any of that, I'll have that link down below so that you can learn more about that. Yeah, just having a heart for sharing and not necessarily a heart for acquisition, I think is what will bring you good plant friends through trades. All right, you guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed hearing some tips about, you know, not being an overconsumer in the houseplant world. I think that it's very easy to be that, because plants are so exciting and fun, and I totally get it. As a newcomer to the plant community, I was buying plants left and right constantly, and I ended up killing like most of them, if not all of them, you know what I mean? So I think that it's really important to take a step back and think about how we can, you know, live into our plant collection in ways that isn't just constantly adding on top of it. So I really appreciate you watching this video, and I hope that you got something good from it. If you'd like to check out Squarespace, I highly recommend. It's been very fun to create a website with them. I have all the information linked down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.